Whoa. Welcome in to the DNVR Broncos podcast on this fabulous Friday, a Breck Brew Friday. Ryan teased us that it was Friday yesterday. There's no teasing going on here. Happy Friday, friends. I'm your host, Zach Stevens, joined by my guy, Henry Chisholm. Henry, how's it going, my friend?
I'm doing good. It was a pretty late night at the DNVR mini golf tournament last night. And that turned out to be a pretty early morning because, we got so much time on this podcast. Like you hit like 40 minutes, you're like, oh, we got to rush now. But like right now, might as well dig in. I made a bet because I was looking through the tee times. I was like, okay, I want to wake up at 8 and I want to have like some action going, not just like big picture win the tournament. And so I was like, okay, Jordan Spieth to beat John Rahm. It's like, yeah, perfect. Tee off at 8, whatever. But that was the time that they teed off on Thursday. And so they actually teed off at 3 this morning. And so I had to wake up really early and watch that.
Were you up at 3 or did you
No.
just catch like the final few holes?
Yeah, no, the plan was to try for like 5, but then about 6, I woke up, like watched for an hour in bed, then like moved out to the couch. So I think the most of the back 9. Lost my bet, so great way to start the day.
Yeah. So it's not a fabulous Friday yet. So I mean, are you chasing? Did you put something else in?
I made another one last night when I realized that it was 50-50. I was going to see it. I was like, well, I have to at least be able to win my money back. And that one's better. That's Zalatoris trying to beat this guy who sucks. He's sucking right now. I can't remember what his name is.
I like to hear it.
Yeah, but it's going great. And I also have I decided to bet on Rory, and he's making a bit of a run. Cameron Young, so I'm in decent shape.
There we go. Rory's on a run, so you're heading into the weekend better than it looked like. I like to hear that. And I mean, the reason you had a late night last night, of course, some DNVR golf. The reason you had an early morning today is some other golf. I mean, you're all golfed out right now.
I know. It's like, I mean, what else are you going to do, though? I guess I'm probably going to that Rockies game tonight. But that's not...
I forgot they were still playing.
Exactly. Like, that's not to see the Rockies. That's because it's Breck Brew Friday, and I'm just going to go buy a bunch of Breckenridge beers and drink them.
Yep, and that sounds pretty darn good. And to make the game interesting, you could check out our presenting sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook, and actually get some action. Make it feel like the Rockies are actually playing for something. And that's what's so much fun about DraftKings is you don't have to put a lot of money on a game. I mean, you could put $5 on a game, and it actually feels meaningful. And for about 2 weeks, we haven't felt meaningful sports here. Now golf's helping us a little bit, and just in 2 weeks, we'll have the Broncos. But of course, got to wait a while to bet on them because they don't kick off until September. So baseball, that's the way to go. Rockies, make it a Breck Brew DraftKings weekend. And when you sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook, you get a free bet or a safe bet up to $1,000 by using that code DNVR. So check them out. And Henry, we are less than 2 weeks away from Denver Broncos training camp. We're both going to be there. It is going to be awesome. We're not going to be watching a quarterback battle. We're not going to be watching a team that is hoping to try to maybe scratch 500. No, we're watching a team with a quarterback, with head coach that brings so much juice, and a team that is going to be fighting for the playoffs at a minimum. That's what this team should be doing. And when we look at this roster, there are a few places that we're going to be watching some battles. Right tackle, running back, cornerback. There's some good battles going on here. But credit to George Paton. He's done a really good job of building a really solid roster from all 22 starters. There's really only 1 or 2 holes, which we'll get into in just a little bit, to also the backups. That the Broncos don't really have any depth issues across their roster in a big way right now. So we wanted to look at today. You and Ryan last week talked about what are some positions the Broncos could trade from their team. Let's look at it from another lens. What are some positions the Broncos could trade for? And let's look at it a couple of ways. And let's start off with right now. What are some positions the Broncos could trade for and make their team even better?
Like you said, like it's tough. You know, there's nothing that really stands out where you say like, yep, there's the one they really need to clean up.
Yeah.
But, and this might be a little bit different direction than you expected me to go. I think right tackle is still an option. They added Billy Turner. You still have Calvin Anderson there. But if you're looking at places where you probably could just get a clear upgrade, I think that's one of them, and especially because Billy Turner can play guard too. And this is probably more of a during camp thing. If you say, we don't like what we see from him, or maybe we just need more competition inside, I wouldn't mind seeing them, if they're going to go bold, see if they could find some veteran just to plug in right there.
So my take going into this for training camp right now, I don't think the Broncos could trade for a single position on the offensive side of the ball. That's just how solid it is. And if there is one, though, it is right tackle, Henry. And the reason why I put right tackle on the back burner right now, but I think it's very fair that you point out right tackle, is because I just think that the Broncos are going to give Billy Turner every opportunity to win this job. They're only paying him $2.5 million with incentives up to potentially $5 million. But Nathaniel Hackett, Billy Turner is his dude, not just as a football player, as a person. They're like best friends going back to their days in Green Bay. So I just don't see the Broncos doing that. But if I'm George Paton, that is a position that I do have my eyes on. So from a Broncos perspective, I don't see them making a trade before training camp or before the season, because they're just going to give Billy Turner every single opportunity. But I agree with you. If I'm looking at this team, right tackle is a position that they don't have a starter right now, Henry. In fact, you had Ben Braden getting a significant number of snaps at right tackle this offseason. And no offense to Ben Braden, but when the Broncos themselves talked about this right tackle competition, they talked about how there were three guys in it: Billy Turner, Calvin Anderson, and Tom Compton. They didn't even mention Ben Braden, and he's the one getting a majority of the reps during the offseason. And so to me, that scares the hell out of me. And Billy Turner is no doubt still the front runner. He's taken 0 snaps this offseason. He has been injured. So to me, until Billy Turner goes out there and, one, shows that he's available and consistently available, and two, is playing well, and especially going up against guys like Randy Gregory, who you hope is back for camp, and Bradley Chubb, I'm absolutely picking up the phone and trying to wheel and deal, because, Henry, it's not just this year. When was the last time the Broncos had a right tackle? It has been forever. And look, if Billy Turner is on a 1-year deal, Calvin Anderson is on a 1-year deal, Tom Compton is on a 1-year deal, Ben Braden is on a 1-year deal, they don't have the guy for the future. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, it is. It feels like a no-win situation, because if somebody there pans out, that just means next year you're paying them market value. Like you're just getting a market value tackle at whatever value that is. So there's no upside with the guys that you have. There was a rumor that I think Bleacher Report put out, and it was something like 5 potential trades that could happen before camp or during camp or something like that. And one of them was Mekhi Becton going to the Steelers. And I know Mekhi Becton, like, it doesn't seem like they'd be willing to trade him, but there's some personality things, and is he committed to football, that sort of stuff. And so maybe there is truth there. But if somebody like that comes available, and I don't think he in particular would, how do you not just go after some young guy who can at least compete, especially if you can get him at a discount, especially if, somebody said in the comments they probably won't trade picks. Maybe a Malik Reed for a comparable young tackle swap. Maybe you can throw in a corner, one of these safeties, I guess, is probably more likely. Something like that, just to give yourself a little bit more upside at right tackle, feels like the only way you could really improve this offense, unless you're trading for some big time player.
I really like where you're going, Hank. And typically a player for player trade doesn't happen, but also it's hard to look at what the Broncos draft picks are and say, yeah, I think George Paton's going to be willing to trade his picks. And he doesn't have a first next year. He doesn't have a second next year. So either he would be trading 2024 picks, which I just don't see him going without a first-round pick for 3 straight years, without a second-round pick for 2 straight years. So he could trade a third-round pick next year, but I also don't see him going without a pick in day 1 or day 2 of the draft. So you look around the roster, And what are some positions of strength that the Broncos could trade? And we don't have to go too deep into this, but there are some positions, Henry. And you look at guard. Right now, the Broncos potentially have 4 guards for 2 spots, depending on Graham Glasgow. And if you want, especially if you get in a right tackle, throw Billy Turner in that mix. You have 5 guards, so you got a lot of depth there. Wide receiver, you have a lot of depth there. Albert O, they're not going to trade Dulcich, but Albert O, he's an intriguing piece that you could move on from. I don't think they're going to trade one of their running backs, but you have 2 running backs, and obviously it wouldn't be Javonte Williams. It would be Melvin Gordon, who you're trading, but I don't think there's too much of a market for him since he sat on the market for a month. And that's just on the offensive side. Defensive side, outside linebacker, you mentioned Malik Reed. Absolutely. Yeah, there's pieces there. Safety, Caden Stearns, cornerback. I mean, this team is really deep. And so you could offer 1 or 2 of these guys. And if we're talking about a Mekhi Becton, a former first-round pick who talent is not an issue. It's scheme fit. Can you get him to play in the scheme that you want? And then, the off-the-field questions that he has, what he's done on tape so far. Do you feel comfortable making that? He probably wouldn't go for a first-round pick because of those questions, but are you able to trade him for a equivalent of a day 3 pick? Is it more of a 3rd round pick? And then who are the guys on your team that kind of have similar values to that?
Or even, Bradley Chubb for Mekhi Becton straight up. I don't know. That's you're going down a path here if you start throwing things like that around. But yeah, there are so many players that you can trade. And even though it looks like it has to be player for player, the other way you do it is just say, oh, Travis Fulgham, a fairly proven wide receiver. He can be a wide receiver 3 somewhere. Swap him for a 6 and then use that 6 in a trade. Trade Malik Reed for a 5 or a 6, probably a 6, and then throw those 2 6s together. I mean, there's options. PJ Locke, J.R. Reed. You can trade somebody who you can get good value for, or you could make the Trinity Benson trade again and just start pulling these late round picks out. So I do think, though, that if the Broncos want to go get somebody, they still have the assets to do it, even though if you look at the picks, it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, and it would be those players. And Jason makes a good point. He's kidding in here, but mentions how the Chiefs are not going to get a long-term deal done with Orlando Brown. Can he play right tackle? Now, obviously, there's not going to be that trade within the division, and that would be probably too steep of a price to pay without a first-round pick, without a second-round pick. I don't think a team, regardless of the Chiefs, is going to take Bradley Chubb for an Orlando Brown. So that would be the player where you're like, okay, we got our guy for this year. We got our guy for the future. And you're also going to have to pay him. And I just don't see any of those moves coming around for the Broncos at right tackle, especially just how much they want to give Billy Turner that opportunity. But both guard spots are potentially up for grabs. The center spot, it seems like Lloyd Cushenberry's locked that down, but they're going to handle the guard internally. It's going to be one of their 4 or 5 guys, or 2 of their 4 or 5 guys who end up with those spots. So right tackle would be the only one. I just think they have too many options for them to say, let's throw all these options out and get someone else. But it's got to happen at some point, Henry. They've got to find a right tackle for the future at some point. And you're right. It really could be if Billy Turner plays well. Okay, well, you're paying him a 3-year, $36 million deal after this year. 3-year, $30 million deal with $20 million guaranteed. And if he plays really well, you feel good about that. If he plays okay, well, you're probably paying him that money anyway.
I mean, you remember when he got that deal from the Packers? I can't remember if it was 3 or 2, but it was something in that range financially. And that at the time you looked at him like, oh, that's not going to work out. And he was solid for a minute, but it did not. He was not what they wanted him to be. But that's the thing about linemen is if you could spend $10 million to get a solid starting lineman, everybody would do it. There's just so few that you wind up blowing so much money on him, and that's why you got to hope a Luke Wattenberg 2 years down the line is ready to step up, or who knows? I guess that's Quinn Miners and Netane Moody this year. We'll see, but something needs to be done to solidify that position at some point.
and you don't have Mike Munchak that you can fall back on anymore and just say, "Oh, he's going to figure it out." We've got Munchak, one of the best offensive line coaches in NFL history, to figure it out. No, you moved on from him. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'm okay with it because I don't want Nathaniel Hackett to be stuck with coaches that he doesn't want. You got to let Nathaniel Hackett make the shots that either gets him an extension or gets him fired. So I like that they gave Nathaniel Hackett the ability to bring in his own guy, but you don't have that luxury anymore of saying, Mike's going to figure it out. He's going to be just fine. And so let's look at more positions, Henry. But first, I got to give another shout out to our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook, where you can get $1,000 sign up or $1,000 risk-free bet by using the code DNVR over at DraftKings Sportsbook for new customers. And the awesome thing about DraftKings is, just like Hank did last night, you're jonesing for some action. You can hop in there, bet on golf. You can bet on baseball. Right before this pod, again, I got another 50% profit boost for betting on any MLB game. I got that 2 days ago. DraftKings handed it to me again today, and that's what separates DraftKings from all the other sports books out there, in my opinion, is just how many free things they give you and how many boosts they give you. It doesn't matter if it's in the middle of July and you're betting on baseball, a random MLB game, or it's the Super Bowl. They're handing out profit boosts left and right. And I thought this was going to go away after like the first month. No, we're years in and they're still handing these out. It makes it really, really fun. So head to the App Store now, download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook now. Use promo code DNVR when you sign up to get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's DNVR at DraftKings Sportsbook. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, crisis counseling and referral services can be accessed by calling 1-800-522-4700 if you're in Colorado. And you must be physically present in Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, Minnesota, New Jersey, New Mexico, or New York, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, or Wyoming only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Eligibility restrictions apply. And once again, see DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details.
And also, it's Breckenridge Brewery Friday. Breck Beer Friday. Damn, I'm new on this podcast still. Like I said, I'm going over to Coors. They've got Breckenridge beers there. It's just an easy option. I think, they have the Avalanche there, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty warm night. I'm not going to want to be able to remember this game, most likely. It is the Rockies, so find me where they sell the Breckenridge beers if you're going to be there. The Avalanche is good. The Strawberry Sky is my favorite, especially this time of year. So many good options, such good people. They've been donating money to the Boulder fire victims. They've been helping Avs fans get to Avalanche playoff games. It's a great Colorado company. It's a huge part of the Denver sports scene and a huge part of our company as well. So head on over to breckbrew.com, use the beer locator, and see which Breckenridge beers you can pick up near you.
And speaking of our company, go to thednvr.com and become a member. We've got so many cool new shirts specifically for the Avs. We're going to have some awesome shirts for the Broncos rolling up. So check out the locker, but also check out the content that we have. In the past 3 days, we've already dropped 3 Broncos pieces. So you want to check out everything we've got going on, especially with training camp less than 2 weeks away. That is going to be the place for the best training camp coverage. And when you sign up for an annual membership, you get a free shirt of your choice. So check us out over at thednvr.com. And then when you do, make sure to say hi in the comment section by going to the podcast tab at the top of the website, clicking on the Broncos podcast, click on the first one that pops up. That's our most recent one. Scroll to the bottom and you leave your comment there and we'll get to it on the next day's pod. But we really want to hear from you. And if you're tuning in on YouTube, hit us with a thumbs up. We'd really appreciate it. The YouTube chat is popping right now, which I absolutely love. We're getting some really good comments. Shout out to Jose. He's always tuning in. Rhett, Jared, Michael, Kerr. Shout out to you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. All right, let's look at more positions. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball, but really quick, Michael Kerr, he made a really good point. He said, don't trade Jerry Jeudy. And Jerry Jeudy, Henry, if we're talking about potentially trading for a big name offensive lineman and having to give up equivalent of a first, second, or third, Jerry Jeudy may be the most valuable, realistic trade person to have there. So we don't have to go too deep down this avenue right now. But Jerry may have the most value of anyone, especially before this season, because his value could take off this season, or if he struggles, I think people will kind of start giving up on him.
And I actually was thinking about a potential trade if we're going after big names this morning, and that plays right into it. What if you tried to trade Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler for Deebo Samuel? If Deebo decides that he doesn't want to go back to San Francisco and that value still might not quite be right, I don't know. It's not too far off, I don't think.
Man, I think that the 49ers would say, how about that 2024 first round pick as well? Now, George Paton could say, okay, well, I think that's going to be pick 28, pick 32 by the time that rolls around. And so it's essentially a really good second round pick. But I think they would want something like that also. And maybe instead of KJ and Jerry, it's Jerry and a 2024 first round pick. Would you do it, Henry?
Oh, I mean, yes. I mean, how could you not? He's so good. Like, the contract thing is a little concerning for sure, especially when you know you're about to give big money to Russell Wilson. You're picking the identity of your team right there. You know, like, that's one of your core guys. You get 4 or 5 of those. But if you can lock up Deebo as one of those 4 or 5, you got to do it. You've got to do it.
Deebo Samuel isn't just a gadget player that can be a running back, although he doesn't want to do that very much anymore. But he also led the NFL in yards per catch last year, almost 19 yards per reception. So just as a straight wide receiver, the guy's freaking phenomenal. And even if you don't use him as a running back, he's still going to put his shoulder down, and it's still going to require 2 guys to tackle him. You're going to have to put a linebacker on him in short situations if you don't want him to catch it and run after. And then he's just going to burn past the linebacker. He is one of the biggest weapons in the NFL. Yeah, I mean, come on. You add him with Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick and Henry. That's one of the positions we talked about of strength. The Broncos could give 2 wide receivers up for an additional wide receiver. Now, I don't think George Paton would do it again, because then you're paying $30 million for Deebo, plus you're losing a first round pick. But it's a fun question to throw around, especially back-to-back comments in our YouTube section say, no way, no Deebo for that pick. Then we have, no, he's got to have more value, aka Jerry Jeudy, don't sell low. And then we have Jerry and Hamler for Deebo in a heartbeat. So I love it. That's a great situation. And we hear that George Paton, he tells us he's in every single deal. Well, Deebo was extremely available, and he's still available, but he was extremely available this offseason. I do hope that George Paton checked up on him and what his price was.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, there's another question, like, does he fit Russell's needs? Does he fit the scheme? First of all, that yards per catch, I mean, that's a guy who can get downfield. Like, that might not be what he's best known for, but he can get downfield. He can get open with the quarterback scrambling. At least we think. With Jimmy G, we don't see a whole lot of that. But I mean, if it's a deal that includes Jerry, for example, well, then your slot rolls wide open. Deebo in the slot, especially in a Nathaniel Hackett offense, and we still don't know exactly what that means, but you would expect quite a bit of motion. You would expect him to be able to get open underneath. He does feel like he would fit that pretty well, in my opinion. But so does Jerry, I think.
If you can't fit Deebo Samuel into your offense, you have a really bad offense, because Deebo Samuel, he is not a one-trick pony. He can do it all. So Michael Kerr, I think it's a very fair question, but yes, he absolutely would fit Russ's needs, and then Nathaniel Hackett should and would be able to find a role for him. So I like it. We're throwing some big names around, and let's look at the defensive side, because I do think there's a couple more positions here than just on the offensive side. I think maybe the biggest weakness of the Broncos starting 22 right now is that third defensive line spot, because you have a lot of good depth along the defensive line, but there's no one really jumping out to take that spot. I think eventually it's going to be Innie, but Innie could end up being the replacement for Draymond Jones if Draymond Jones leaves after this year to go get paid somewhere. So you still need a third defensive lineman, whether it's this year, whether it's in the future. So that's potentially a position that you could go and get. That's why when we talked about it a couple weeks ago, and Ndamukong Suh, man, he made so much sense to go out and sign, and still available if you want him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think defensive line is necessarily a need. I think that you can look and say like, yeah, there's 7 guys who, if they're your 7 you bring in this season, you're solid. At the same time, though, like if you're not impressed by Matt Henningsen and you think he's more of a practice squad guy, McTelvin Ajim, maybe it's time to move on from him. All of a sudden, there are a couple question marks there, and there's some questions in terms of the top line as well. DJ Jones, Draymond Jones, you're set there. Mike Purcell, I think he's a solid nose tackle. He gets into the backfield enough for his position for what you're asking him to do. He holds up enough. I'm pretty high on him, I guess. I think he's a league average nose tackle, which again, like, how many nose tackles really are there? There aren't a lot of guys who play his role. He's coming off on third downs anyway, so it's not the most important position. Deshaun Williams, it feels like, he's not somebody who you expect to be getting into the backfield, but when he did get extended work last year, he proved that he was a good rotational lineman. He was a solid rotational lineman. He did enough to justify getting a few snaps a game when other guys are tired. Could you upgrade? Yeah, you could upgrade. But I mean, if McTelvin Ajim pans out, if Uwazurike turns out to be exciting, there's paths, I think, for that being a decent group. But if you're looking at places where you could add on this roster, and that is maybe the one that stands out the most.
And I agree, and that's why I don't think that George Paton's going to make a move at this position. It's just like right tackle. They have so many pieces, and they have 4 good backups, and all they need is one to kind of establish themselves to be a good enough starter. Because the truth is, too, you're not going to be playing with 3 defensive linemen for a lot of the time. And Mike Purcell, he is a solid nose tackle, but he's played in 19 of a possible, what would it be, 33 games the past 2 years. That's someone that personally I'm not counting on, just like I'm not counting on KJ Hamler. Although if KJ's on the field, I think he can be an absolute danger, but I'm just not counting on him. But there's so many other guys that could step in as well. So then we look at, we go around outside linebacker. No, it does not make any sense to go and trade for a guy right now. Inside linebacker, though, Henry, not only do I think it's one that could absolutely happen, but I think there's a name out there that's potentially intriguing. And one of those names, or the name I'm talking about, is Deion Jones. Now, a talented inside linebacker, and he has pretty much been available this offseason, or believed to be that he could be available after the June 1 cut date. He's a guy that could be interesting to buy low on and just see if you can get something out of him. And especially with the way the Broncos inside linebacker room is. Look, Josie Jewell, he's the starting inside linebacker this year. There is no question about it. Opposite him, you're probably going to have Jonas Griffith. He's really taken that job. But would it be a shock to say in the middle of the season if he's no longer the starter? No, it wouldn't be. I've really liked what I've seen from Jonas Griffith, but has he done enough where he's, the starter year in, year out? He's getting a contract extension? No, certainly not. So you add a talented guy like Deion Jones, who needs to kind of rehab his career a little bit. You put him in Denver, you buy low. That could make a lot of sense.
Definitely. And to me, that's one of the positions similar to defensive line and right tackle too, where if you're making a move, you're not making a move for competition or for a rotational piece. You're making a move for somebody who you think is a very clear upgrade, because you have guys competing there. Like, you have some options that you could go into the season with and be happy about. Deion Jones is one of those guys who you add him and you do pencil him in as a starter. You do say like, okay, we got better here. This isn't somebody who, could be, I'm trying to think back.
There have been some
It's just one of those players that they've added, Jamal Charles. Jamal Charles, where they add him back in, and it's like, nope. Turns out you just paid to get him, and he did nothing. There have been some of those at linebacker as well, but there's an opportunity to upgrade. I saw Leighton Vander Esch in the chat. That's another one that would make some sense and more expensive, but if you're willing to pay, then why not? But the Broncos strategy has been, their third downs in the red zone. That's what matters when you're playing defense. If you can get off the field on third downs, if you can hold them to field goals in the red zone, that's what football is kind of about at this point defensively. You're taking one of your linebackers off the field on third downs. And so all of a sudden there's only so much value. And who knows, maybe that changes if you can go get obviously like a Bobby Wagner wouldn't be available. A Roquan wouldn't be available, but somebody who you think has a chance to be a top 10 inside linebacker, I think that probably would make sense.
Man, and it's just something that has made sense since Vic Fangio got here, and they didn't do it even when they had the opportunity in the draft in the first round and got no effect after trade back. And then it just seems like every year there's been a guy where it's like, oh man, he makes so much sense. And then every year we're saying, I guess he made too much sense because the Broncos didn't go that route. And so, I mean, we mentioned potential inside linebackers, man, with Leighton Vander Esch. I know he's been injured 2 of his 4 seasons playing, but would that be an exciting guy to add? And especially, I mean, the Cowboys don't need him with the way that they've added to their team. Yep. I would be all for that. And that would be such a good addition because you have Josie Jewell, the guy that you can absolutely rely on. You have Jonas Griffin, the guy with high upside. And then you add Leighton Vander Esch, who extremely high upside. And you just kind of figure out, okay, between these 3 guys, we could get 2 really good inside linebackers.
Yep. And I think it's easy to look at Josie Jewell and Leighton Vander Esch and say like, maybe a little bit redundant, like both better in the running game, playing when they're moving forward, diagnosing, getting into the backfield, slipping blocks, not so much as pass defenders. But I think if you put those 2 together in the middle of a 3-4 defense, nobody's running on you. You are going to just be bottling everything up, especially with Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory on the edges. Like you're just forcing him to go up the middle. Well, and that's the thing though, is that the Vic Fangio scheme, it's always pushing the runs outside, just bounce it outside. All of a sudden somebody has time to get down and make a tackle. That's how you get away with playing 2 safeties deep. If you have those 2 on the edges, you have DJ Jones and Draymond Jones on the inside, like that front 7 all of a sudden is really, really exciting. Could you get it done? Who knows? And the other part is the injuries, but with Alex Singleton as a backup, don't have to worry about injuries. You might not have your super group anymore, but there you go. You're fine. And you still have Jonas Griffith, who might just be better than Alex Singleton anyway. And there's some real upside there too. So that group would all of a sudden just be top three group on the team.
Potentially. And to play off that, Henry, then you're forcing teams to pass. Oh, give me that. With the way the outside linebacker group is built, they should be good. And that's probably the biggest question mark on the team is the outside linebacker group. So I do have to put, they should be able to get after the quarterback. And then that means that then they're only going to have one side of the field to throw to with how good I think Pat Surtain is going to be. And Justin Simmons is that ball hawking safety. Oh my gosh. I mean, and Ronald Darby is just straight up a very good number 2 cornerback in the NFL right now. And Kwan Williams is a really good slot corner. I mean, yikes. This defense, the fall off that I expected to have going from a potential top 5 defense to probably just outside the top 10, there probably wouldn't be a fall off if the defense comes together like this by adding just one potential player.
Absolutely. And just to flash back to Deion Jones a little bit, I think it was the defensive coordinator said a couple days ago that they only installed 60% of their defense last year, and they want to get that. They're going to get up to 100%. And so it could be that they see him as one of those guys that's like, yeah, once we kick it up a notch, he's going to be just fine. So I do wonder if they try to hold on to him instead of selling low. But again, Deion Jones, Vander Esch, whatever. That any one of those guys would be a lot of fun to add. Linebackers are fun.
Yeah. Especially when you get a good one. And the Broncos have been searching for that really good
Mhm.
one. Josie Jewell is a really solid inside linebacker. But man, that's why Al Wilson is one of my favorite, if not my favorite Broncos of all time. Is just he was so electric. And when you get an inside linebacker that's electric, that's why we talked about it
Mhm.
yesterday. We all three said we would take Micah Parsons over Pat Surtain if they both continue to play the way they have. It's because now, I know Micah Parsons does a lot more than just a dominant
Mhm.
inside linebacker, but that's where he starts. And if you get a guy that can affect so much of the field, and the Broncos just haven't had one because they haven't invested in one. I mean, you look at
Mhm.
Danny Trevathan, Wesley Woodyard, Josie Jewell. You look at all these guys. Josie Jewell, of all those guys, was the highest drafted of them, and they've got really good value out of guys that they've got, but they just have never invested the first round pick recently into any of them. The last time they did, correct me if I'm wrong, Hank, the last time they used a first round pick on an inside linebacker, wasn't it Al Wilson?
Maybe DJ Williams?
Oh, DJ, yep, yeah, and I
Yeah,
mean he was fun
but
for
still.
many reasons.
He sure was. But just having a guy like that, it just gives you an identity. And like as much fun as it is, and it makes sense, I guess, to have that pass rush and corners identity. Like you're playing defense. Like go hit somebody. Go tackle. Like have that dominant force inside because it just opens so much up. When you can put five guys out there, four linemen and a linebacker behind them, and say like we're going to be just fine against the run, it just opens up so much, and it would be so much fun to see one of these guys.
It would be. It would be a lot of fun. All right, at cornerback, they don't need any cornerbacks. Safety, they
No,
don't need anything. Henry, are we missing anything, or did we hit all of them?
I think we hit them unless there's a chance that they do something weird and trade a seventh for a punter just to add competition, or same thing at kicker, but that seems unlikely to me. It seems like they're probably set. Um, Backup
I
quarterback
agree.
they probably already handled. Yeah, they're fine.
The only other one on special teams specifically is if for some reason they see Montreal Washington in training camp and say,
Mhm,
"Oh no, he needs some time," or "Oh no, he can't catch the ball," or something like that,
mhm.
and then you do a seventh round pick for someone. But even then, I think they would let Kendall Hinton take that responsibility and pretty much just catch the ball. But they're really counting on Montreal Washington. It would be pretty big failure by the coaching staff and the personnel staff if Montreal Washington is not their starting punt returner this year, and pretty good at it as
Yep.
well.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe fullback too if they decide they want a fullback, but that's another one where I'd be surprised.
Right. Yeah. And that's probably something. I mean, Andy Janovich went for a conditional seventh round pick.
Yeah.
So you could probably pick them up. Now let's hop into the comments section. But before we got to give a shout out to our friends over at Green Mountain Dental. Well, not only will they take care of your teeth exceptionally well, and you're going to have a great experience when you're there because they're great people, but they're going to give you a gift. If you schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam, you'll get a free Sonicare toothbrush so that your teeth are taken care of when you're not checking out Green Mountain Dental. And of course, you're going to go to the dentist anyways. Might as well go to a place that has supported us for so many years, part of our DNVR family. And when you're there, you can talk Colorado sports because they are all die-hard Colorado sports fans. So check them out over at Green Mountain Dental. Schedule that cleaning, x-ray, and exam, and get yourself a free Sonicare toothbrush. All right, Henry, let's hop into the comment section and talk to the people. And first one coming in from Big Hank Stan. He says,
Yes.
Toad in the Hole is one of the goats of breakfast, though I know RK doesn't like eggs, so he doesn't get to play. Who will be the... Okay, so we got to start there because the Big T then replies to that and says, wait, what? Toad in the hole for breakfast? No one in the UK eats that. He says, okay, so America has its own version of toad in the hole, which looks like an egg inside toast. That is not toad in the hole in the UK. Toad in the hole is essentially sausages baked inside a Yorkshire pudding and a main meal. And there we go, Yorkshire pudding, another English food to add to the list. Hank, what is Yorkshire pudding? Help me here.
Oh, I just Googled it. But having Googled it, it does not look like a pudding.
I was gonna say
Um,
it can't be a pudding if we're putting a sausage in it.
exactly. It looks like bread. So it's a batter of eggs, flour, and milk or water. It's a common British side dish. It's versatile. It can be served
Just
with
like
onion
Debo.
gravy. Yeah, I don't know how
Okay.
onion gravy works.
Okay.
Just looks like bread to me.
Okay, so it's essentially like it's their version of a hot pocket because it's got some meat inside, especially when so a toad in the
Mhm.
hole is a UK hot pocket. There we go.
I guess it is.
Now, have you heard of toad in the hole the way that our friend Big Hankster is referring to it, as in just like when
No.
you take a piece of bread, you cut out the circle and you cook a little egg in it?
No, I had not heard. I mean, I hadn't heard of toad in the hole in any way. I had to Google it, and these pictures just. How does that work? Like, why?
I gotta say the UK, maybe your food is good, but you guys got to work on the names because you do not make a lot of these things sound appealing at all. Even Yorkshire pudding. One, I don't know what it is. Two, if I were to order a pudding and then I see a piece of bread come out,
Yep.
I mean, I'm not saying it's not going to be good, but I'd be very confused.
I would be, and probably disappointed also. But,
Right,
like,
right.
just looking at this, it's like they bake the sausage into the bread, but all these sausages are just like weirdly spaced, and so I don't even know how you get the right amount of bread or pudding. I guess the pudding to the amount of sausage. Like, just get them separately, right? Like, cook the sausage on one side,
Right.
cook the pudding, if we're calling that, on the other, and then just grab a little of both.
It sounds like a little game where you, like, go hunting for
Yeah,
the bits of sausages inside the quote unquote pudding.
yeah. Toad in the hole sounds like a game that kindergartners would play.
It really does, it really does, and then they're, like, eating something off the grass, and they're calling that a toad in the hole. I know the Big T is definitely gonna have a, response for this, but Big
Mhm.
Hankstand goes on and has a Broncos question. He says,
Ooh.
"Will there be a new s who will be the new starter for the Broncos that will make the biggest impact? Maybe a game-winning or changing play or 3." Love, Hankstand. Okay, Henry, I'm gonna ask you this question, but your answer cannot be Russ Wilson.
That's probably a good call. I mean, you run through. We're not an offensive line, maybe the most important outside the quarterback, but nobody's gonna care. Nobody's gonna be like, "Oh, he won
No,
us that game."
no.
Receivers are basically the same starters. The tight end, Albert O, could be a new starter.
Yep,
Javante, we could maybe call a new starter, but that feels
yep.
unfair to me. I feel like you got to go with. I mean, Randy Gregory's the big money free agent. Like that would make a lot of sense. You could see K'Wan Williams coming in and making some plays that change games. You know, if he gets a couple fourth quarter interceptions, easy for him to be on that list. Um, and DJ Jones. I guess DJ Jones would be the other big one. Yeah, those would be the three that stand out. And I'll just go Randy Gregory. I mean, they
Yeah,
gave him so much money.
if it's Randy Gregory, Henry, a lot of things have gone very well for the
True.
Broncos, and this thing is looking really good because it means your pass rush is probably going to be pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm.
Randy Gregory's probably in that 10 sack category. So not
Mm-hmm.
only is he good this year, but then he's looking good for his future as well. You really hope that it's Randy Gregory, of course, outside of Russell Wilson. DJ Jones also could, but he's just not really a game-changing type of player. He could have a big sack or a forced fumble, but if you're talking about game-changing plays in a couple of them, man, it really could be and should be, and you hope that it's Randy Gregory.
Yep. Interior linemen, you just don't circle him on third downs. And again, that's what matters. Like, over the course of a game, like, there might be a second down where he breaks in and you wind up with a kind of a bonus sack when you're not trying to go get a sack, but you don't expect to make game-changing plays. You're totally right. Yeah, Randy Gregory he's the favorite, at least.
Yeah, and he should be. Next one from C. Fillmore 72. He says, "Gentlemen, greetings from the UK." I can only imagine where this one's going, Hank. He says, "British fans have a largely free choice of which NFL team to follow." Wait, maybe I was wrong. I guess we're
Oh,
going
not
a
about
different
food.
direction. Wow. He says, "I guess much like Americans who watch the English Premier League, there are all sorts of reasons for the decision. Some choose to find their hometown's namesake in the States, by which method my team would not be the Broncos. My hometown's Chisholm's namesake is the Philadelphia area. Maybe Allie knows Chisholm, Pennsylvania." I hope I'm saying it right. He says, but back in 1985, I picked the Broncos, not the Eagles. Love to hear that, C. Fillmore. But he says, my question is, if there were no Broncos, who would you support and how would you decide? Or if you can't get your heads into that alternate universe, who would you pick from the NFC to support and why? See you in October, Christopher.
That's a good question. So I mean,
question.
My mind goes to like who's fun right now. Not like big picture. This is a team that I could root for, and that makes it tough because I feel like a lot of those when you pick a team, it is more big picture than like, oh, they have a couple young guys in like this very moment. But you look around, it's tough because like the Jets or the Jaguars, again, young guys, excited, but I'm not tying myself to a team like that. No. Not same with the Eagles. Like it's just like, that doesn't do it for me. So I mean, I hate to say the Patriots, but they do have that blend of like, can Mac Jones do it? Plus, you bank on them being good. But I can't say that. Well, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm going to save myself here and definitely go the NFC route. But then Henry, I mean, we look at the NFC and the thing we talk about is why would Aaron Rodgers leave the NFC to go to the AFC? Why would he want to be on the Broncos? Because the NFC, there's so few teams that can actually make a run. And I mean, you look at the true Super Bowl contenders in the NFC, and this one's not even a true Super Bowl contender in my mind because they have Aaron Rodgers in NFC Championship games. But you have the Packers, you have the Bucks, who's legit. Obviously, you have the Rams. They just won the Super Bowl. To me, it stops there. You look at other top teams in terms of record, you do have the Cowboys. You have the Cardinals, and if you talk about fun and exciting, they could fall in there. The Eagles, fun and exciting, but I agree with you, Henry. I mean, they're not a Super Bowl team. Maybe looking for a new quarterback in the year.
Yep.
Maybe the 49ers.
That's where my mind is going.
And I think I may have to go there just because they're the upside with Trey Lance, and it's going to be really fun this year. And they've got so many good pieces on the defense and on the offense. And Kyle Shanahan's a guy that all of us can get around. So probably San Francisco. However, we may be rethinking this in 3 years when they don't have any first round picks. And if Trey Lance doesn't pan out, it's going to be tough for them.
And I'm a Trey Lance doubter, but the 49ers history tells me things will work out. Like it's not like they're the Lions or even like the Eagles where you just say like you're asking to be set up for failure. 49ers, they'll figure things out. They have a core. They have an identity. Packers also stand out to me. Just again, you have the history. You have the tradition of quarterbacks that makes you think you could probably get another one when you need to. But those are the two I was going with, and you're so anti-Packers. I'm not surprised you settled on the 49ers.
Man, and I gotta say, just looking at the AFC teams, I'm not gonna pick any of them because I don't want you guys super mad at me, but there's just so many more fun teams. I mean, the Titans were the best team in the AFC last year in terms of record, and they're like, midway through in terms of fun teams. You got the Chiefs, who are a blast of a team. The Bills are so much fun. Bengals a little lower on the list, but with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, so good. The Raiders potentially have the best weapons in the NFL, so they're a fun team. Patriots, hey, I like me some Mac Jones. Fun, probably not along those lines. And I mean, you keep going. Colts, Jonathan Taylor, Chargers. I mean, I don't need to say anything else, but they're a very fun team. I mean, Ravens, Lamar Jackson. There's so many fun teams. The AFC is just, I mean, we talk about the AFC West all the time being dominant, but the AFC is just so dominant. It's so much fun.
Yeah, Bills is a good one. I think the Bills is a really good one. And again, like there's a history there that you wonder if this is kind of a flash in the pan. And as soon as, I mean, you have Josh Allen for 10 years, you should be able to make good things happen. So that's a little concerning. But even the Steelers, like that history, the defense, the identity, like sure, they might not be good right now, but it's going to work out. The Raiders, as much as I hate to say it, they do have that history. I mean, they sold their history. That's gone now. It's not the Raiders. The Ravens is a good one too. Those defenses. Yeah. AFC is the way to go.
And you know what? With the Bills, Henry, I wanted to stay away from the AFC because I didn't
Mhm.
want people mad at me. But I actually think the Bills is one that Broncos fans are like, yeah, no, you can support them. That's okay. Because Josh Allen, even though he's not local, he feels like a local kid.
Mhm.
He was a guy that makes a lot of people think of John Elway, and the Bills are just so harmless. You think about the Bills' history, and you feel bad for them. You're like, man, they had such a good team and they lost in the Super Bowl 4 straight seasons. I mean, that is just
Yep.
heartbreaking, especially coming from a fan base who has seen 4 Super Bowl losses. And that's something that I think is a little relatable. And Josh Allen is just such a good guy. He's such an easy guy to cheer for.
And they play football like the right way. Their culture is a good culture. Like obviously Bills
Yeah.
Mafia, everybody knows that. But to have that sort of fan base after what they've been through, and also to be in Buffalo, it's not they're small town fans. Like you want good things to happen, kind of like the Green Bay thing. Although I know you don't understand that part, but you have all those factors working. Like they're building a new stadium, and it's going to be outside in the Buffalo winter. Like that's something you can get behind. Like that feels like the way that football is meant to be played, so the
Yeah.
easy to root for.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'm gonna ditch my NFC team and I'm gonna go with the Bills there. And also, especially before the Broncos got Russ, I think a lot of Broncos fans were maybe not Bills fans, but were pulling for the Bills because
Mhm.
they knew that was the best chance of a team beating the Chiefs in the AFC. And we saw it. They probably should have beat them last year. I still think, even though they weren't able to do it and the Bengals were able to do them, I still think the Bills have the best shot of beating the Chiefs in the AFC
Mhm.
this year. And so that's something that in the back of their mind, Broncos fans will be thinking about this year.
I've got a Broncos Super Bowl ticket, and my other one is Packers over Bills in the Super Bowl, 45-1
Ooh.
odds. How
Oh,
feel good about that one?
45-1, man.
Yeah.
You're not going to win it because the Packers just simply aren't going to get there. But for those odds, Henry, I really like that. That's
Uh-huh.
good.
Yeah, I like that one.
What's the favorite right now? Is it Chiefs Bucks?
Yeah, it's something like that. Chiefs Bucks or Chiefs Rams. I think
Yeah.
Chiefs Bucks.
Yep. I mean, just the classic. All right, next
Yep.
one coming in from the Big T. He says, "Guys, you have to try some spotted dick while you're over here. You'll love it. Covered in custard. Oh, I forgot custard, which the French famously call creme anglaise. So we must have invented that too. Come on, Hank. Can't we tempt you into some spotted dick whilst over here? I'm pretty
Ah.
sure you won't be able to get enough of it once you've tried it. Peace out." The Big T. Henry, do we know what spotted dick is?
No. I mean, I would imagine it's a sausage.
I would think so, but what's the spotted part mean? They have blood sausage. Are we talking something along those lines?
I don't know. I mean, it's got to be something in it. You can kind of like see through the sausage wrapping.
Okay,
Like
Henry, I'm
peppers in
I'm
there. They wouldn't
googling
have peppers there.
spotted dick. Wish me luck right now. I'm not quite sure what's gonna come up. Oh, okay. It's very different than what I thought. Spotted dick is a traditional British steamed pudding, historically made with suet
Huh.
and dried fruit. And just like it says pudding here, Henry, it's like a bread. So pudding must be like bread or pastry or something like that over there. And the reason it's spotted is it looks like it has either some chocolate chips, some berries in it. Looks like there may be some cranberries at times. Um, yeah, so it's very different. Yeah, I'll try this. It's much different than I was expecting.
You know how the Eskimos have like 50 different words for snow or whatever?
No, I actually didn't know
Oh,
that.
well, they do. And I feel like the British, it's kind of the same thing with bread. It's like, yes, this is bread. This is
Right.
pudding. This is
Yeah.
spotted dick. Like it's just like different breads. But yeah, I think I'm interested because suet, according to Wikipedia, is the raw, hard fat of beef, lamb, or mutton found around the loins and kidneys. So if those are the spots,
What?
again, I'm a little bit. I mean, I don't hear that and think yum. I don't think anybody does. I'm willing to try it. Maybe it
No.
works out, but
And
that's what my grandpa gave to his birds.
it was seriously, and another Google that I'm coming across says that pudding is the word they use for dessert. So I can kind of see the bread, it's a sweeter bread, but then you
Mhm.
throw things like suit in there, like you just said, Henry, and that doesn't seem like something you would have in dessert at all. And it also looks like there's canned spotted dick. I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Again, when we get there, we'll try well, maybe not all of them.
Yep,
Some of these weird words, I don't know what they mean. I'm not just going to say blanket, I'll try anything, but we'll try most of these things.
we
And
will.
who knows, maybe dried fruit and bread with animal fat is better than better than it sounds.
That's what I'm saying, Henry. We'll try this stuff and maybe it is really good, but like
Mhm.
with the names they use to describe things and with the ingredients, it just I think the big T will even understand where we're coming from, saying, man,
Yeah.
that just the sound of it doesn't necessarily sound amazing.
Yeah, it's why do you call it spotted dick? It seems like you're kind of making it tough to understand what's going on. And then you realize that spotted dick sounds a lot better than sponge pudding with animal fats from the loin and dried fruits. Doesn't sound like something anybody would order. So it's like spotted dick. It's like that doesn't sound good. Sounds better than what it is though.
It's really true. It does sound a lot better than what it is. And speaking of food that sounds really good, our final comment coming in from Zia Tortilla says, I work in Denver and Albuquerque. New Mexican food and green chili is by far superior. That is all.
I wonder if it's a little too authentic for me. Not that that's bad. It's just that my favorite is less authentic. Tex-Mex type. So that's my first thought. But I have heard here's what I've heard. So the green chili, there's like the New Mexico green chili, there's the Colorado green chili. New Mexico people always say New Mexico green chili is better. Colorado people mostly say that Colorado green chili is better, but sometimes you have people say like, nah, it's actually New Mexico stuff, which makes me
Right.
think that it probably is the New Mexico stuff that's
Yeah.
better. And I do like green chili. So that could balance out the, you know, more authentic than just melted cheese on everything, but I kind of like the melted cheese.
Ryan would have a big issue with this Zia Tortilla, but I'm going to give it to New Mexico just because New Mexico green chili, I mean, it's hatch. It's New Mexico hatch green chili. That's their thing. We
Uh-huh.
have so many other things in this state. We've
That's true.
got the mountains. We've got great sports teams. We've got Denver. I mean, we got Boulder. We got Fort Collins. I can go on and on about how many great things this state has. I'll give New Mexico the chili and say that it's not bad if that's the 50th thing on our list.
Yep, and I've only had Colorado green chili, so I can't say New Mexico chili is better. I can just say Colorado green chili is really, really, really good. Although I've heard more Colorado people say New Mexico chili is better than. I guess I don't really talk to people from New Mexico though, so what do I know?
And our super producer Kale, if he wants to hop on, he can. He is livid with
He is.
us right now. He's saying, "How dare us!" Yelling at us in all caps and saying, "Where is RK when you need him?" And you know what? RK is enjoying a Breck Brew Friday right now, and I hope everyone is able to enjoy the outside, enjoy the summer, get down to Coors Field, get you some Breckenridge Breweries, hop on DraftKings Sportsbook. And Hank, I've really enjoyed rolling with you this week. So happy to have you on board on the Broncos beat with us. Training camp is less than 2 weeks away. We'll be back on Monday to preview training camp like no other. And I can't wait for it. Broncos season is almost upon us. And for that, it'll do it for us today. Henry, thank you so much for rolling with us. Thank you, super producer Kale. And thank you, all of you, for rolling with us, whether you're tuning in live on YouTube, on Twitter, or on Spotify, or anywhere you find your podcast. We really appreciate it. And have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you Monday.